Hello. All right. Nicole, hello. Here we go. All right, guys. Thanks for hopping in real quick. Wow, what a day. Early today, head out to Soho and Chinatown with Danny Benner, and we met up with Raymond, Air Boss, and Lou, which is Infamous New York. That's their tags. And what a great time. A lot of content created, street photography. I mostly shot, actually the only camera I shot was the Leica Q. I actually went into Leica Soho and checked out the Q2, and the viewfinder is amazing in the Q2 compared to the Q, but I don't know that I want 47 megapixels. I think it could be cool, but I think that this camera's sensor has a lot to be desired over maybe the Q2, but regardless. How did I set the camera up for the day? Basically, as you see it right now, I had it on auto ISO for the most of the time. I had it on auto ISO. I had it on daylight, white balance. Not that that really mattered because I shot RAW plus JPEG, and then I also used my walk around shutter speed was 1/500th. My aperture just walking around was f8, so 1/500 f8 f8 auto ISO, and I used the rear command dial for exposure comp. And you know, I have this set to exposure to meter off of like center. Center focus, not spot, but center. And, the Q tends to meter a little bit bright. So I found myself, due to the daylight, due to the lighting too, but I found myself more or less staying like -1 to almost -2 EV, about 2 stops darker, because it was really contrasty in the morning, and we were kind of just riding, exposing for the highlights. I always recommend that if you want that contrasty, gritty kind of look of, street photography, not that it has to be that way, but for me, the style that I like, and it seems like most of the people that I shoot with, similar, you gotta protect your highlights. If you blow highlights on a digital sensor, it's really, really tough to recover them without them looking really muted and washed out, and you lose like the pure white. It just looks so digital, and it ruins the image. So you have to be really careful about your highlights. What I suggest you do is, if you're shooting a bright sun or contrasty situations, I suggest that you meter for the highlights and underexpose images. Let the darks crush black. You can always bring the darks back. Today's digital sensors are very, very good with shadow recovery. Still not that great with highlight recovery. Let me see. Here's a question. Played with the Q for a while. It opened my eyes to the 28, torn between street friendly 12 18 f2 and Fuji's newest 18-1.4 for the Q, but or a Q, but I would rather not use a whole other camera. So again, actually, Lou, that we were out with today, has a pre-order in for the 18-1.4. I think the 18-1.4 is going to be a fantastic lens. Everything that I've seen about it is fantastic. The only thing that's negative about it is a 1.4, and it is huge. When I'm shooting street, I don't like to have a really big setup. I like to be kind of small. I think it helps to be conspicuous. I think when you're running around with like a DSLR size camera or a huge lens, it just screams like you're up to, like, try to make money, or you're trying to, I don't know. You call more attention to yourself. This isn't that big. The X100's not that big. Ricoh's GR, the XF10, things like that. Even, an X Pro 3 with like a smaller lens. The guys were out today. One had a 35 f2. The other one had a 35 1.4. I do like the 18 f2. It's one of my favorite lenses. But the 1.4 should be amazing. It's just you're really never going to shoot it at 1.4 unless you're shooting in low light or you're really trying to get some separation. Then maybe you're going to shoot it at 1.4. So it's kind of tough. Like, I don't know. It's up to you. I mean, whatever you have. The Leica Q is amazing. I will tell you, it is an amazing camera. I love to shoot it. But like I said, it meters a little hot, so I underexpose it. And like I said, for my walk around speed, 1/500th auto ISO, and I let, around f8. I was 5.6, f8, f11, anywhere around there. And I just let the camera just do what I wanted it to do by riding the exposure comp, always down, never really up. Actually, I never overexposed at all today, even in the dark areas. So that's how I did it. The other cool thing about it is that when I did want to shoot wide open, you run into a problem. Sorry if I'm not waving to everybody. Hello from Brazil. Hello, hello. Danny says, I love to shoot low, shoot under, of course. Danny, because he knows what he's doing. Lou's in here. Lou is in here as well. Awesome. Cool. I was just talking about you, Lou. Now, don't listen. You don't have to always just go what I'm telling you. I mean, the 18 1.4 is going to be an amazing lens, but it's a big lens. It's definitely a big lens. So just, be aware of that. So, like I said, those were my settings for walking around. Now, the only thing that I had to do is that if I wanted to shoot f2 or f1.7, shoot wide open for like a subject isolation, like something similar to like what I just posted, but something like this was shot wide open with the Leica Q. If I left this at 1/500th, I'd be completely overexposed. So, again, people would say, well, why don't you just leave this on aperture priority and let the shutter do whatever I want it to do? Because I don't want to have to sit around and fiddle with my ISO all the time. It's much easier for me just to do a couple things. If I'm walking around and I want to capture fast motion and I want my camera just ready to go for when I see something, I can simply swing around real quick, grab the shot, portrait, grab the shot. I don't have to worry about my settings. The autofocus is just fine for doing street work. If you don't want to do that, you can AF, you can manual focus it. But 1/500th is key. 1/250th sometimes could even be still too slow. I like to shoot 1/500th. I'm not worried about the ISO. Let it ram up a little bit high. If 60, I don't care where it is. What I do care about is if I'm trying to freeze motion, I won't be able to do that if I'm using auto ISO, because the camera will want to try to give you the lowest shutter speed to bring your ISO levels as low as possible. Now, you can set up those parameters, but then you fall into the position of it's not a Fujifilm camera where you have 3 ISO settings. You have 1. So what ends up happening is that if you have your ISO set for a low shutter speed of, let's just say 1/60th, that's not going to serve you well on the street because your camera's going to want to slam down to 1/60th to compensate for the ISO. So I like to let ISO do whatever it wants to do, and I like to pick my shutter speed at 1/500th. Now you're saying I got off track there, but I keep trying to reiterate what I'm talking about. If I want to shoot wide open, for instance, I don't have all of them downloaded on the computer yet because I literally just went through a crazy editing session. But if I wanted to go with something like this, where this shot right here is shot wide open with the Leica Q, then what I would simply do is let me turn this camera around here for you guys. What I would do is I would take it off of 500th real quick, and I go to aperture, I go to auto, okay? Open this up to 100, to 1.7 or f2, and then I can just expose down or up, okay? That always works, because what that's going to do now is that now your camera is seeing so much light coming in because you opened it up, you put it on auto, instead of sitting around trying to fiddle around and be like, okay, am I at, do I need to be at 1/1000th, 1/2000th? I'm going to tell you something. If it's a bright day, none of these are going to help you. You need to be on automatic, because your camera needs to now switch into electronic shutter, which is way higher than 1/2000th, which is the highest which is the ceiling for mechanical shutter. So there's no sense of you just trying to ride the 2000 because you're still going to be overexposed. So what I did real quick is I'm walking around at 1/500th f8. Okay, 1/500th f8. I'm taking pictures. I'm doing what I want to do. Oh, here's a subject. I want to isolate them. 1/7. Put it on aperture. Put it on, I always say aperture. Put it on A. I mean, it's that quick, guys. f8, 500. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, there's somebody. Automatic, f2. Boom, ready to go. Oh, I want to go back to the street again. Capture it. Back 1/500th. And I'm good to go. I don't have to do anything else. There's no like big secret to this. It makes it so simple. And I was able to have perfect exposure for wide open shots right along with fast moving subjects. So that's, one of the things. The only other thing, that you can have is like, when you want to start doing like panning shots, I'm trying to see. I have so many images here, guys. Like I'm going to be having like a whole flooding of images that, we all took. I mean, I was there with, Danny and Raymond and Lou, and, we all hit some of these scenes here. And, I got a ton of stuff. I can't wait to post all this, but I'm trying to get to, and they're probably going to be towards the end. So I want to really get to that, but I really like this one too. This was awesome. Black and white. I didn't shoot too much. I didn't develop too much black and white today. I was kind of really just using color. But I want to get to the one shot that I was kind of talking about. This, again, when I talk about protecting your highlights, and no better scene is that evident than this right here. Okay. Really, really dark scene, but, she had a slice of light going completely through right on top of her head. And it looks a little washed out over this, but when I post the original, or if you check out the story, if you didn't expose her hair properly, and that means that if you left your camera on negative, positive, like neutral EV, that all that detail in her hair, that would have been completely washed out. It would have been gone. And you probably would have had a hard time recovering it. So that's what I mean by protecting your highlights. Let me get all the way to what I wanted to show you. I got so many cool photos, man. It was like a home run. And then I want to get into another topic real quick with you guys, but I want to show you another easy. There's Big Lou. I'm actually gonna give him this one. I gotta send this one over to him. But man, I got so many I can't believe how many images I gathered from today. And again, that will leave me to another thing that I want to talk about. But I just want to get to, here we go. So panning shots, okay? Everybody asked me like about panning shots in the middle of the day, a bright sunny day. How is this accomplished? Now, I'm going to show you right away how this can be done, okay? These are all panning shots. These are with 1/15th shutter speed, okay? So now when you're taking a panning shot, 1/15th shutter speed. I gotta switch this around because I gotta show you this technique, because people ask me all the time, and I would love to get people to take these panning shots. Really, really cool. So what you do is how you set up, and with some of the Fuji cameras, like an X100 or like an X100, because you have the neutral density filter, it's a little bit easier, but still the technique is still going to be the same. So get your shutter speed. Get that all the way down, very slow, okay? 1/15th is great. Sometimes you can get away with 1/30th if it's fast, like a fast-moving car. But like bicycles, 1/15th is really good. If it's bright out, okay, you want to take, number one, you want to get your ISO at floor. So if you have ISO 50, perfect. If you have ISO 100, fine. Most of the Fujis will do like 150, 120, or like 200. Get your base level ISO as low as you can get it, okay? 1/15th, and then close down your aperture all the way, okay? F11, F16. You're not worrying about your depth of field. You're not worrying about isolating the subject. The thing that's going to isolate the subject, okay? Again, this is shot at F16, okay? This is shot at F16. So is this one, okay? And I had another one too, but I didn't post that one up yet. I didn't post any of these up yet. So the thing that's going to isolate your subject is the movement, okay? And what I suggest you do is base level ISO, 1/15th of a second, f11, f16, f whatever you have on your lens, okay? If your camera is good at focusing, this was fine. I autofocused it. It was fine. If not, manual focus where you think you're going to see the person go by. So for me on that shot, it could have been as simple as like one of the traffic lines, one of the lines in the street. I could have pre-focused on that, and I know the bike is going to go right past it. At f16, you're pretty deep. You don't have really anything to worry about as far as making sure that he's going to be in line. But if you have autofocus, it works fine just as well. Shutter on this one, this is where it is. It's the C. Put it on continuous. Anything that your drive mode could be bop, 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 fast, okay? Because you may not nail it on the first one. I've done it, but why play games? Get some security. And what you're going to do is you are literally going to track the object, the vehicle, the bike, the person running, whoever it is. You're going to track them, and as you hit the button, as you hit your shutter, you're going to follow them the entire time, all the way through. Even if you're done shooting, follow them through. And I say that because you don't want to get into the habit of like, oh, I got him, and then you stop, okay? Because if you stop, that's probably, you're going to screw it up. Follow all the way through. So even if you're shooting, stop, just follow them through. Keep going all the way around. If you do it enough and you stay consistent with the same speed of the person that you're moving, you'll see him in a viewfinder. And if you see him in a viewfinder and as you're hitting those buttons and you're staying the same speed, he's being isolated because you're literally capturing his movement because you're in perfect sync with him. Everything else behind it is going to blow out. It's going to, get real smeared. It's going to have this movement and it's going to convey this movement. I mean, when you look at this photo, it looks like this guy is really moving on the bike. I mean, obviously he is, but it looks like he's got some speed to him, especially this one. This one almost gives me like makes me feel like I'm going to have what do they call that? Some of these, really, really cool stuff. And again, not all of him is going to be razor sharp, like his face is blurry, but his shoulder is in, and, even on this one here, he's kind of all the way blurry. This is just a really cool effect. This is not a great panning shot by any means, but this one's pretty cool because like the bill of his hat is pretty good. His shoulders, his chest area is all in, and like everything else is just blurry and moving out and all smeared out. So, but yeah, definitely a cool day. Definitely getting a lot of great shots. This guy got pissed off at me today. And you'll see in this next photo right here, you can actually see it right in his face. And Danny is right behind him. And he looked at me and he's like, "Did you take a picture of me?" I'm like, why? And he's like, you can't do that. And he said, I needed to sign a form. I need to let people know right off the bat that if you are on the streets in America, I know the rules are different. If you are on the streets in America in a public place, you are free game to have your picture taken. Now, if you want to do the right thing and erase it, you can. You don't have to. That's here in America. Could be different somewhere else. So, just a little tip with the Leica QP. But again, that panning technique, that works with every camera. You just got to set up your camera the right way. Floor of 100, f15, 11, close down your aperture. You're closing down all that light. Because here's the thing, if you left it at like f8 or f5.6 and 1/15th, it'd be so bright, your image would be blown out. All right. And continuous, and just follow through and just practice following through. You can pan anything you want. If somebody's walking, you can pan them, but you're just going to have to really, really slow down. And, you might need to go to like 1/8. But then again, you run into the problem of letting in too much light. So, you got to be careful about that. But that's the technique for panning, and that was the day. Let me see. Somebody asked me, how would I compare shooting in New York versus shooting in Philadelphia? I like New York. I like the crowdedness of New York. I like the buildings have more of a, I think just a grittier look to them, and all the signage, and obviously the streets are a little bit more packed. But Philly's great too. Philly definitely has a really fun vibe to it, and it has some great architecture. And you can get a lot of good shots in Philly. And Raymond, whenever you're ready to hit Philly, man, we'll hit up Philly, and we'll do that. There's a ton of shooters out there that we can link up with and have a great time. Yeah, Lou, I'm going to send you that picture. It's not 100% in focus because that was the one where I was playing around with zone focus when we were sitting in front of Columbus Park, and I hit it. But, it's pretty good. It looks filmic because it's not, like, super, super sharp. But, I was listening to a few things like I always do. I'm always listening to YouTube, and this gets into a discussion real quick, and then, maybe I'll show some more work if you guys are interested. But I hear these guys sometimes, and it's these, well-known YouTube photographers that, we're doing podcasts and stuff. And, they say sometimes like, yeah, I went out and, I went out all day shooting and, I've been shooting and this, that, and the other thing. And I'll say, I think over the last year, I only had like 2 or 3 good photos. And I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if I believe that or not, because to say that you go out every day or you go out a couple times a week or even once a week, and at the end of the year, you only have 2 or 3 photos, either A, you were really, really strict with your process of what you consider a good photo is versus what is not a good photo, or B, you're trying to make it seem like you're so, I'm just going to say like the word elitist that, only certain work can pass the test for you. I don't, listen, today was a really, really good day for me. Really, really good day. I ended up with 81 files that I'm really happy with. Some I love more than others, but 81 files that I can definitely use for content. Again, not all of them are the best that I consider like, hey, these are really like unbelievable. These are the ones that I really like. But 81 usable files for social media and talking about photography and technique. I find it really hard that people tell me that they only get a few files a year. Now, I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's any different for you guys. It just seems really, really far-fetched. I don't know. What do you guys think on that? I just see that and I just think it sounds ridiculous. The other thing I thought about, and this came about like, writing things and talking to people, is labeling yourself as what kind of photographer you are. Like, I don't really consider myself a street photographer. I shoot weddings, I shoot food photography, I shoot product photography, I shoot family photography. I'm a hobbyist. I shoot street photography. I shoot minimalism. I love minimalism. I love shooting scenes without any people in it, just looking at color and abstract art and shapes, similar to, obviously I can find it because I have a million of these things, but I love, simple stuff. I mean, guys, this is nothing mind-blowing, but it's just a fun image, Is that street photography because it's a picture on the street, or is it abstract? Is this abstract or is that street photography? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Obviously stuff like this is, pretty much the genre of street, but what is that? I mean, I guess that's street photography. There's a person in it. Again, and this is the thing that I laugh about, is because everybody, not everybody, but I just feel like there's so many people that take themselves so serious in this genre of street photography about what is and what isn't street photography. When, like, literally I'm taking pictures of garbage. And by the way, that's Airboss's feet. That's Raymond's feet. But I'm taking pictures of garbage and I'm making images out of them. And, again, does it tell a story? I mean, I guess it does. It tells you the state of New York City and, when you're walking around, like how, dirty some of the streets are. I guess that's street photography. But, things like, obviously like that. I mean, So I find this question of like, do you label yourself? Do you label yourself of what kind of photographer you are? And by labeling yourself as a street photographer, does that now kind of pigeonhole you on what you must always be? It's funny because Danny and I were talking, like, I know Danny to be a street photographer, but I also know that Danny used to shoot weddings and shoot weddings with film. So it's kind of funny. Like, I think sometimes everybody jumps the gun about labeling what kind of photographer they are when, like, I just say that I'm a photographer. I look at things, I see what I see, and if I want to take a picture of it, I take a picture of it. I don't care if it's people. I don't care if it's an abstract. I don't care if it's, just shapes or tones or colors. And it's funny because some people will look at it and be like, what are you taking a picture of? And I'm just like, I just see something. And sometimes I don't even know what it is that I see until like I'm really kind of just, I frame it up and I know that there's something there. And we all did that today. All four of us were kind of walking around and we were like looking at scenes and like I would sneak up behind like one of the guys and be like, yeah, there's something there, right? And he's like, yeah, there's something there. I don't know where it is. And I think it was with Ray and Air Boss. And I was like, yeah, there's definitely a scene there. And he's like, yeah, but it's one of those ones where the light wasn't correct. So you would have to come back to it. And I think that just comes with experience. People would ask me all the time, like, well, how do you develop that? I think that just comes with looking at things in a different light and a different way. And that just takes time. I don't know of anybody who just hits the streets or hits wedding photography or hits, product photography and it's just like perfect right off the gate. It takes a lot of images imprinted into your brain. And I don't mean by taking images, I mean just looking at life differently and seeing a picture and everything. I mean, it becomes an obsession with me where I will walk around and just constantly framing stuff in my mind. And being like, well, that would be an image. I would crop it there. I would cant it there. I would adjust the exposure to, compensate for A, B, C, or D. And like, I think that your mind just starts to think that way. It's probably like something like a mathematician who always sees numbers and everything. I think for me, I'm always seeing exposure, composition. I'm seeing that in everything I do. So I think that's... I think that's what it takes. And I think you'll get there. I think you just got to keep looking at it differently. I agree with you, and I feel partially attacked. We all struggle with those small details of the craft. What is it? I think social media makes us so competitive that we sometimes are really hypercritical of our work. Yeah, no, I think that's true. Let me expand on Raymond Airboss's topic. I think that's true. I think people are super critical of their work. To be honest with you, I'm not super critical of my work. I like what I like, and I'll explain my work if somebody asks me about a specific picture, but sometimes my photos don't have any explanation. I just saw something. I can explain to you what I saw. It may not appeal to you. Like, again, like this photo right here, I love this photo. It's not my favorite of the day, but I really like it the more and more I look at it. I like the shadow behind the sign up here. I like all the different colors on the wall. I like the fact that there's this, A-frame with the construction thing. The bike is obviously the main focal point, but it's everything around the bike that adds to the bike. If the bike was just there against the red wall by itself, it would have been a flat photo for me. It would have been completely flat. But the fact that I have this garage door with this gradation of shading going down in a different, not tone, but different structure against brick, with the brick being all different colors, and then the sidewalk all dirty, the construction symbol here, the bike, which is yellow, shooting all the way behind the sign, which is up here and has graffiti on it, and then there's a shadow here, and then all the way at the top, just a hint of an air conditioner. To me, that all has to be there. That all has to be included for that photo to work, or it doesn't work. It's just a flat photo of a bike on a wall. And I've taken those photos, but I'm like, and I'll try to make something out of them. I go, there's nothing here. I just took it. I thought I saw something in it, but I didn't. And then when I saw that photo, like immediately when I was looking at it, I didn't subconsciously say like all those elements. I need this element, that element. I didn't see all those elements when I took the photo. I just knew, I think subconsciously, I knew those elements were there. That can sound really pompous, and I don't mean it to come off that way. It's just I do these things without thinking. I take that photo without thinking. I just know that there's a scene there because my mind has told my heart and my finger and my eyes, Joe, there's a scene there, take the photo. And I'm like, okay. And I just, like a dummy, I go take the photo because my mind is telling me there's a scene there. Because my mind knows. It's trained itself to see these things. And I think that takes time. I think you can develop it. I just think it takes time. That's a good shot with the bike. I hate labels too. Good photography is subjective. Can't stand when people are dismissive with composition, focal length, criticism. I don't know what you mean about dismissive with composition and focal length criticism, Garrett. Can you go a little deeper on that? If you're talking about people that are so concerned with certain lenses or that they will only shoot this or that, that's all they'll talk about is like thinking that that's the biggest deal. I don't know. I'm sorry if I didn't get it all the time. By constantly shooting one will eventually get better. Yeah, definitely. Raymond knows. I totally do the same thing in regards to framing scenes in my head. That's the only way to do it. That's the way you get better at this game. Definitely, guys. If you have any questions, hit them up, man. The AC up in the window as well. Yeah. And again, I feel like it's one of those things that I didn't even know it was there. It just happened to be there. You feel the photography and take it. I do the same. I think that that's the best way to do it. So I think it's kind of funny, like, that, you'll get these other photographers that are like, I only took like a shot all year and I only got really 3 good keepers. Like, I don't know, maybe you're doing something wrong. I got 81 photos today and they're not all, I wouldn't say all of them are my favorite, but all of them definitely have something special. Definitely have characteristic that I like. A couple photos have all the characteristics and culminate into like one image that I'm like, that's the one. But all of them have something that I could say that's a keeper. I don't know. And the other thing that I would say is I feel like sometimes, and listen, I love shooting, and Cyber Mike will tell you this, I love shooting older gear. I do love shooting like cameras from the past and, cameras with older sensors and stuff like that. I find it very interesting, and I find limitation very helpful in teaching me to become a better photographer. However, I think that sometimes when I default back to YouTube because, again, who do you hear from? I mean, if I'm on Instagram and somebody has a live, I'll watch it. If I'm on YouTube and somebody's talking about a camera or talking about a technique, I'll listen to their YouTube. And more times than not, I find it really funny. I feel like it's this subculture that it's like they find it very pleasing to, it's almost like a badge of honor of how good they can make their photographs using like a piece of shit camera. And I get the theory behind it. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I get the theory behind it, but it's almost like they stick their nose in the air as if like, oh, well, I took that picture with like this $25 flea market camera. So yeah, I mean, it's cool that you have the X Pro 3, but like, I just don't shoot that. And I'm like, well, do you not shoot it because you can't afford it? And if you can, I understand that. But are you just saying that because like you think it's a badge of honor that you can create artwork with less than stellar gear? I mean, again, if I'm going to the city and I'm taking images and I'm spending the day to create good content, I want to use good gear. I do. I want to use my Fujis. I want to use my Leicas. If I'm going to shoot weddings, I want to use like my Canons that I like to use. I love the Canon glass for wedding work. I just find it really kind of odd when, you see these people out there and they're just kind of, it's kind of weird. It's like downplaying it. So people will be like, wow, you're amazing. I don't know. I could be completely off, but it just hits me. I just think it was funny. I could take a dozen a day that are great. It's not hard. You just gotta move from the spot that doesn't move you. Yep, definitely. I took a picture with a new Leica M10, piece of shit today. It was fun. That's right, Fred. You got your M10 today. How did you like it? I didn't take my M10 today. I was almost going to pack it up and bring it, but I wanted to really, I've never really shot the Q in the city. I've shot it all around. I've shot it in, different areas near me, but I never had it in the city taking street photography. And I really wanted to kind of just grind on the street with this camera. And it did not fail me. This camera was amazing. Danny had his M10, and he has a beautiful lens on there. I was going to bring my M10 with that Ultron, Voigtlander Ultron, which is amazing. But I stuck with the Q, and I loved it. I even had my 100V with me, but I didn't shoot it. The Q was just functioned perfectly. And I still have, after shooting all day, I still, believe it or not, I still have like 1 bar left on my battery. I didn't even go through a whole battery, which is crazy. And I didn't have the LCD off or anything like that. I just, shot it. Dream camera, man. Yeah, listen, the M10 is fantastic. But, Fred, if you don't have a 35 and you're looking for a fun 35 f2 and you don't want to spend Summicron money, this Ultron is fantastic. It is beautifully made. Obviously, it's a Voigtlander. It's got a great focusing lever and beautiful aperture. And what a fantastic lens this is. The M10 is definitely a great piece of gear. I just was on this Leica Q kick, and I stopped in the Leica store, Fred, and I picked up the Q2 just to look through the EVF, and what a difference. I mean, it's not even the same EVF. Resolution-wise, it seems the same, but it's so much bigger, so much clearer around the edges. This camera is great, but the one thing that it sucks because I love the EVF in this, but I also hate it because I feel like it pigeonholes, it like keystones in, and I feel like the outside is blurry a little bit, like where all your data information is. And it's not, the compensation in the back. It's not that, because I've adjusted it and made it perfect. It's weird the way it is. The 7 Artisans 35-2. I've never shot the 35-2. I have the 35-1.4. But the 35-1.4 is great, but it's big. It's a big lens and it's heavy. It's like it's a Summilux, basically. But if you want like a Summicron, this little lens, I mean, this thing is small, guys. It's such a little lens, and it looks great on the camera. Obviously, it comes in black, but I wanted the two-tone. I wanted to have like a two-tone silver on it just to kind of mix things up. But yeah, really great lens. Nice hard stops, both ways. Just like it's the same as the Leica lens, the Summicron. But yeah, really small. I mean, that's not large at all, guys. Real little. Well, see, and that's the cool thing too, Fred, that you just said, is the Q2 would be great for cropping, but I wonder how good the Q2 is in low light. And then there were some people that said that the Q2 dynamic range wasn't as good as the original Q. I don't know if that's true. I find that hard to believe. I could see the low light being a problem with the Q2 being 47 megapixels or megapixels, but I can't see the cropping. I can't see the whatchamacallit being bad. Dynamic range, rather. But yeah, I go back over some of these photos, and I just can't believe like how sharp like these images are with the Q. I mean, that Q lens is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's so hard to see until I post full res, and I'll do those on a blog, but yeah, just awesome stuff, man. I just had so much fun. Let me see if I can flip this around and just kind of show you guys. Not that you guys are all dying to see what I shot today, but, I like to just share work. This one is the one I just posted up on Instagram through the truck here, black and white. Yeah, just a lot of fun, a lot of great contrast and tonality today on all these images. Just a really, really fun day to shoot. What a good time. And again, I said it in my first post, and you know, for me, I mean, I know some people, you know, it's difficult to shoot with others, and maybe they feel like they can't get you know, in the right frame of mind because they feel maybe distracted. And, you know, again, I understand that. You know, here you go, another bike shot, like I said. But again, you know, a bike with all the graffiti in the background, you know, the chain around it, the candy wrapper on the bottom, the curb with all the cigarette butts, this cup in the corner here. You know, it's layers. It all adds to the image. But like, yeah, no, I had such a great time shooting with other people because often when I go to the city or I go, you know, try to do some photography in the city, I'm usually with my wife or I'm with my daughter. And what that means is like we're going somewhere. So I'm taking images as I'm walking. So I literally have to like speed observe everything around me and be like, there's an image there. And I just start taking shots. It was so refreshing to go into the city with my main objective just being to shoot photography. And I was able to, you know, adjust my settings, and I was able to like just hang on a street corner and wait for the right subject to go by, or just kind of work a scene a little bit. I never get to work a scene. And it was really, really nice just to sit there and work a scene. You know, all these photography, like a lot of the images that you see from me are me just grabbing stuff. Like I got to start working the scene a little bit more, and I feel like I can get so much more. But like my point was, it was great being out with everybody doing the same thing and just piggybacking off of each other. And you know, Danny would take a shot, and I would be like, "Oh man, that's a great subject," and like I would take a shot too, but you know, would be at a different angle. So it was really really cool to work off of. I definitely plan on doing more of these walks, and hopefully people can join and do that. Fred, not the best in low light, but very capable. Yeah, I'm sure it is. I mean, I totally agree with the 0 point of having I totally agree. There is 0 point of having such a large sensor. If you want to crop it, it would just use the M10 and a 50. Yes, I get what you're saying, Danny, on that. I do. I love shooting you're going to get a different compression if you shoot a 50 versus an M10. So even though you're shooting a 50 millimeter on an M10, if you use the crop line 50 on a Q2, it's still going to look different because you're not going to get the 50 millimeter compression. So do you want that compression, or do you still want the compression of 28, but zoomed in more? Not compressed, just cropped in. This is more than enough for me. I just like the fact that you do have a lot of sensor real estate to work with should you want to crop in, not to exhibit a 50 millimeter look, but crop in to get rid of, you know, certain points of an image. And here's another thing that, you know, 28 is wide. So this camera the lens is fantastic, but there is distortion, you know, when you're shooting vertical lines and scenes that, you know, I correct my images, you know, unless it's something that I'm trying to convey a weird kind of wide angle look. But I'm a stickler for horizons. I'm a stickler for lines going the way I want them to go. And I don't like when things are like, if I'm shooting buildings and they're keystoned and I want them straight. And when you do that sometimes, like for instance, when I'll get to this one, because this one, it's funny because at the end of the day, we ran into, he just did that Diesel Fried Chicken book. I forget what his name is already. That's horrible because we literally were just sitting there talking to the guy, and I'm going to flip this around. I just got to get to that. But like when I cropped in on him, like I lost part of him. So, you know, that's one of the things that, you know, if you have 47 megapixels, you can still correct the buildings in the back and you're not losing a lot of your images, a lot of your image. So, but yeah, really cool. What a great day. There's always a worst camera. It is a beautiful journalist camera. Sorry, I'm just reading these here. Oh, I gotta flip this around. I feel it would make me lazy knowing that I can just crop in. You see how work all over the place. No, I get that, Danny. I mean, obviously everything comes with discipline. The only cool thing about it is that you're still going to get the 28 millimeter focal length in your RAW file. The only thing that's going to be cropped is your JPEG. The other cool thing is if you're trying to frame things, it's kind of cool to have that. It looks just like just like the Leica M10 where you have frame lines now. So even if you want to just leave your camera on 35 millimeters just so you can see the frame lines, and people say they like to do that so they can see the subject coming in or out. I shoot sometimes with both eyes open, so I can definitely see my peripheral where I can see both people, people coming in and out of my scene, and I can time it and say, okay, here he comes, because I got both eyes open, and then I just wait for him to kind of, and I grab it. But you can get the frame lines inside the Q or the Q2 by just simply, if you, I can probably show that, so, you'll have these, you'll have the frame lines in the back, and that's what your EVF would look like. And that's 35 millimeter, and then this one has 50. But you're going to lose megapixels when you do that on this camera. Well, on all the cameras, but at 42 megapixels, you don't really have anything to worry about. I'm trying to see if I have any other files that I took that I put on here. No, that was just the other. Here was that original one. You can see more of the detail here in this one. But yeah, so definitely going to do more photo walks. Danny and I are working on a secret project, so we will probably talk about that sometime in the future, sooner than later. Let me see here. A lot of mediocre full frame images have been saved by just cropping in, so more megapixels can be your best friend. That's true. That is definitely true. Yeah, I mean, listen, sometimes I'll take an image that I'm really happy with, but like there'll be one element that I really don't want. Either it's somebody in a scene, so now I have to literally crop, and I don't want the crop to be so whacked out on the aspect ratio. I don't want it to be like a 16 by 18. I want it to be like, I want it to be a similar aspect ratio to what, normal aspect ratios are. And sometimes, like, again, if you have to, get somebody out of the scene, or you have to crop it a different way, so then if you're bringing it over, you have to bring it down a little bit so it kind of looks, or it's going to look too thin, or it's going to look too fat. So there's, different things that need to be done. Again, there's always something. And yeah, megapixels can help, when you have that kind of situation. I like this one too. I got all these. I'm like so happy with a lot of these images. I really like this one here. Sneaking up behind this guy while he's on the phone on his bike. Yeah. But everybody got some good ones today. It was a good time, a lot of fun. I'm just trying to see if there's any other ones that I really kind of want to throw up here. I'm gonna put some more up tonight, and I definitely am going to do. I'm probably going to do a blog on this, or definitely maybe even a zine. 81 photos is a lot for a zine, but I don't care. Maybe do a zine. Definitely do a blog write-up on the Q2 in the city with these images. Really, really happy with the tonality. Happy with the sharpness and the way that this lens renders files. Like I know people will say all the time, like, oh, it's so filmic, or it's like medium format. It gives you that medium format look. Well, first of all, I think you need to know what medium format looks like. I shoot medium format. I get it, and I get how they say that this can have a medium format look. I would agree with you. The Leica lenses are fantastic lenses. They're very, very special in the way that they spill out files. I mean, this, especially this, because it's a wide angle lens that's still very, very shallow. I mean, when I see, this is uncropped, but this is at 28 millimeters, and it's still very shallow, and it still gives you that three-dimensional look, which is very reminiscent of medium format. It's different. I know people would say, well, if I put a 51.2 on a Canon, that's going to be separation bokeh, three-dimensional looking. Yeah, it is, but it's going to be a 50 millimeter compression. There's something about shallow, wide-angle lenses. Sometimes when I shoot like wedding work, I'll do bokeh panos. So if people don't know what a bokeh pano is, that means that you're basically shooting like a 50 or an 85 at I usually do it at 1.4 or f2, just to ensure that I have the couple in focus. I focus on them, back button lock focus on them, shoot the image, keep the focus locked, shoot the next image over to the right, shoot it over to the left, above, top to the, it's like a Brezhnev or whatever that guy was that came up with it. If you guys don't do wedding photography, then you probably wouldn't know what the effect is. But basically what I'm doing is I am locked in on that focal plane, but I'm stitching 4 or 5 photos, and I'm doing what's called a bokeh pano. I probably have one on here. I don't know if I have one on here or not. No, I don't. I don't have a bokeh pano on here. I thought I did from that wedding the other day. But that gives you a wide field of view and a very shallow depth of field, and it looks very medium format-y kind of look. This lens kind of does the same thing because it's wide and shallow. And it's not shallow. It doesn't, it opens up to 1.7, allowing in a lot of light, but it's very shallow, and it's razor sharp at 1.7. I mean, it's not like some of those lenses that are a little soft, wide open. Yeah, three-dimensional pop. Yeah, exactly. Even at 28 millimeters. And that's what I think people are kind of contributing to that medium format look. I'm just trying to go over. I think, I'm so happy with this shoot today and the series that, it's obviously one day in the city and I have 81 photos. I mean, I can make a series out of this. And I may actually do maybe I'll do a YouTube video where I kind of explain my thought process on some of these images and the way I edited them out. And, the edits were quick because, again, the files are so good coming out of the queue. Obviously, I put my overlay on top of it the way I want my color to be, but just very, very easy to work with. And the black and whites, too. I mean, black and whites are just amazing on this. Amazing on this camera. All this tonality in the side. It's beautiful fall off on the dumpster. I mean, it's just, he's perfectly isolated, and the bokeh and the separation in the back there's enough blurriness to separate you, but not, see, that's the key. Especially when you're trying to, I think that for me, I don't want to come off as this is it, but you guys are watching me on Instagram, so I get to talk about what I want. But for me, that's the key when you're shooting wide open in street photography. You want a lens, or you want to be at an f-stop, an aperture. You want enough depth of field to separate your subject from the background, but not completely blow out the background that you have no idea what environment he is in. Because I've seen it before where people will take these beautiful shots of somebody in the city or something like that, and the background is completely blown out, and you have no sense of understanding what environment he was in. You can clearly see that this gentleman is on a street with a parking meter behind him and a garage and all the buildings and flags and fire escapes and air conditioner, but it's still blown out. He's still separated. We know that, our attention is still drawn to him. We know that he is the subject of intention. We are supposed to be looking at him, but again, I'm saying all this stuff while I'm behind the scene. We know that we're looking at him, but we still can see that there's enough detail here to tell you where he is, to what's going on around him. Obviously, there's a place for blown out backgrounds and bokeh to the moon, but I don't know. I think the environment is just as important as the subject when shooting street. It conveys part of the story. It's like me reading you a story and I don't tell you who the characters are in the beginning, and then people die at the end, but I don't tell you who they are. All you know is the middle part of the story. It's not going to be a very good story. You need to know all the parts of a story. You need to know all the elements of the image. You need to know the atmosphere, the tonality, the subject of importance, the framing, the composition, the story behind it. And I feel like if you're just blowing out your images all the time, this guy could have been on a beach smoking a cigarette. How do I know he's on a street? If I blow it out at 1-2 and I get super close to him, you have no idea what's behind him. You're not even going to be able to tell if that's a city or not. He could just be anywhere. That's my thought. .28 millimeter at f4.56 gives you a good balance for me. Yeah, 4.5, 5.6. I mean, that's fine. I mean, that's middle of the road, right? I don't shoot wide open on a street, rarely at all, ever. Only if there is a static subject standing there and I really, really want to get close up and intimate with that subject and isolate that person. In a case just like this photo. Normally, I'm shooting very, very deep, F8, F11. At nighttime, I will open up to allow in the light, but my reasoning for opening up is not to isolate. It's to, dive my ISO down so I don't have, a picture that's completely noisy and void of any texture or detail. All right, guys, it's been a long day, and I am going to cook up some dinner. Thank you all for hopping on and sharing this time with me. I hope you like the images. Please stay tuned for many more. Definitely stay tuned for a blog that's going to associate itself with all these images and, talk about the Q. Maybe a video about all this. I could definitely do a YouTube video about all this in this day. And check out Infamous New York, check out his work, check out Danny Benner's work, check out Raymond Alvarez, check out Airboss, check out their work. If you don't have them on your Instagram, go follow them. If you go to my one photo that I posted from today with the girl walking past on the wall, they are tagged in there. You can simply just go right there and hit them up from my first post. And we're going to do many more walks. If you guys ever are around in New York City and want to meet up with us, let's plan it. Let's walk. More than happy to have you join us and come along and share your knowledge with me and with the group. And, it would be great to learn from everybody. Everybody has something to teach somebody. And I think that's what makes this whole community great, is that when people are willing to share their techniques and their advice, that's how we all get better. All right, guys, thank you so much. As always, really appreciate it. Fred, thank you so much for joining, Fred. I'm glad you were on here and all your advice about the Q2 and the talks that we've had. Really appreciate it. Mike, you as well. Airboss fun day. Have a good night. Cool, man. Yeah, thank you all. And Lou, I'm going to send you that photo. All right, guys. Thank you. See you on the next one.